Greetings and welcome to a Drawing Stuff with Paul Yateman video. This video is a mix of pencil, marker, Copics and pencil again. That's being grey lead to sketch it, coloured pencils to colour in. The first marker is actually a fineliner and then Copics. So this video is based off this drawing is based off a pitcher plant. So I've drawn the more of the little beastie here in a style that is representative or reminiscent of a pitcher plant. Colours not so much, but design wise that's where the inspiration is. I think this took about an hour to draw all up. Because I did do a fair bit of faffing around with the colour, and sort of like my last video, I've kept the details fairly light. I could have included a lot more shading to give the drawing less of a flat appearance. The thinking here was to draw this sort of blobby creature sitting in a swamp, something along those lines. So I've started out with my 2B mechanical pencil, just drawing in the main features, which is the mouth and the eyes, which I think I based those off maybe a frog, and the body. So that's it. So once I've done the sketch bit, I go through with my, I think it's a 0.6 fineliner, and I apply black ink to everything. And what I'm doing here is sort of adding some volume to the design, or at least some shading in various spots to try to make it sort of stand out. What I will do after I've done the actual drawing here is to take it to my scanner and scan it, just in case the actual colouring in process knackers the picture. Then I can come back and print it off, or do some fixing up, or maybe colouring in digitally one day in the future. So for probably the next minute, all you'll see is me just going through with the fineliner here, adding lines, beefing some up in places maybe, and that's probably about it. So I'll come back probably at the time I do the scanning with some more commentary. So until then, enjoy the do. Yeah, try to give the sort of a chin there. And those sort of blotches I was thinking were either like markings, maybe like what you see on a frog, or perhaps peat leaves. Anyway, I've done my scanning and I'm back. So now I'm going to do some colouring in with Copics after first putting a protective piece of paper behind it. So I'm just testing out some colours before I actually apply them to the main drawing. So I'm sort of going for a biological colour scheme for the mouth. So pinks, purples, reds, creams, that sort of idea. I'll also be using a couple of different tones to try to give it a bit of depth. Not too much though, because I'm not paying, well, I should say I'm not paying particular attention. I'm not, I can't even think of the word. Why have I gone blank? Don't know. Anyway, so you can see I'm changing the colours, adding some shading as I go around, building up some depth of the throat of this little beastie. I could have gone with a greeny brown colour scheme for all of the creature, which would have made it more in line with, say, a pitcher plant. I could picture the colour scheme in my head, but I didn't have a picture in front of me, so there was nothing to reference. So it's all made up. Sort of giving it a tongue slash sticky absorption pad thing for when things get into the mouth there. And the idea with the needle fangs is anything that does get into the mouth gets trapped by the creature biting down. Yeah, I'm trying, or at least in my mind, thinking of putting some extra weighting on the lines underneath, thinking of a top-down colour scheme. A little bit of differential shading with greens around the eyes, and also some layering to try to build up a little bit of extra shading. And here I'm trying to keep the colours also just around the edges. Because, why? Because that's the style I'm going for. Very, very hack jobby. Anyway, what do you think of the current setup where I've got pencils and pens strewn around the pad, while the pad's sitting on a one of those fancy chopping board things? I found personally that allows me to align the sketch pad up with the camera a bit better, and also what does it do? It shows you a bit of my workspace. So rather than just seeing a sketch pad, which is probably some people's preference, you get to see around the edges and my pointy nose sticking in. I figured with, say, big screen TVs, which is where I've been doing most of my YouTubing viewing, something like this doesn't lose as much detail when it's presented this way because of the prevalence of large TVs that people might be using, as opposed to watching this on a phone. And if you are watching any drawing videos on phones, I don't recommend that is the best way to view such things. You lose a lot of detail. But then if you're just a fan of watching, say, this in the time-lapse version with no audio, because my voice probably drives you bonkers or it's not very useful, go for it. So here with the brown colouring, I'm trying to shade in such a way that I don't get any streaks. Mildly successful. Doing this on a sketch pad doesn't help, of course. If I was using a bleed proof pad, then the ink wouldn't dry as fast and there'd be less chance of getting streaks. Here you saw on the right hand side I used long lines, whereas on the left I did sort of circular motions, and I find circular motions on sketch pads that aren't specifically for bleed proof paper does lead to a better result. So here I've decided to launch into some pencils as well to do the shading. Sort of builds up a bit of depth, and I also was thinking that using pencil would save money considering Copics cost like $6 a pen, and these pads suck the ink out of them like there's no tomorrow. Whereas my good old Derwents, I've got stacks of those kicking around, and with my minimalistic style here, not going overboard means I don't use much pencil either, and that saves money in the long run. But who knows, maybe I could turn this into an NFT and sell it for lots and lots of money. Not likely, as in the selling bit. I think I've made 125 NFTs so far, just for shits and giggles, and not one of them is sold, even priced between $200 to a stupid amount of e-tokens, or Ethereum, or Ether, or whatever the heck it's called. So, dreams of buying a house are probably not gonna happen. So I'll just do this for love, not money. So with this beast, I've concentrated most of my effort into the mouth, and really skimped on the actual body. And here I'm finding that my gel pen has wound up being pretty much useless again. They don't last very long at all, at least in my experience. So very sort of sketchy, haphazard colouring in here, trying to keep with the theme of the more is less. Some very sort of laid back shading with my 0.1 fineliner here, adding some detail, and then what do I don't call it quits yet. I think I add, yes, right, I add some background to the top of the drawing just so it's not just white. I am picturing Sorry, I am picturing this thing in a swamp sort of scenery, so I'm putting a green background and I'm going slightly harder on the application of pencil towards the edges of the little beastie here, and I'm trying to make it lighter as I go out from it so the graduations aren't as harsh as they actually wind up being, but then it could be worse. And as I've said on most of my drawings, it's always a learning experience. But about the only time I find drawing isn't a learning experience is when it's just like production line drawings and stuff where it's just lines and there's no shading, which would be more of my sort of cartoony style, which I don't do on YouTube very much because it's not as interesting. Anyway, if you found this interesting, informative, entertaining and all that stuff, subscribe, like and share. And come back for more videos if you feel so inclined. If not, oh well, have fun. And yeah, until next time, you've been watching Drawing Stuff with Paul Yateman. Happy drawing and take care.